we finally reach the denouement in chapter 10. Now, we have talked about the exposition, about the rising action. We talked about the climax in chapter 5 and then the falling action. We traced the falling action. And now we're going to see the culmination of all of this and the resolution, what happened after. It is the conclusion that the book is drawing to, and it helps us to understand the plot in full and to think of the themes, etc. So the final chapter then strikingly illustrates to us the betrayal of the original ideals and the corruption of power. We see the end result of it with Napoleon in power and life going on a day-to-day basis. We see that many of the characters who were involved in the rebellion and in the revolution have actually died. We know that Boxer has died, for instance. And those that were still alive sort of remembered a few things, but the ideas have sort of died down and they can hardly remember it. And then, of course, old old Napoleon has had many, many offspring, and there are many, many newcomers on the farm who actually don't care. They've heard about rebellions and so, and they see it as like ancient traditions or something, but they don't really know and they don't really care because life is going on. The windmill is working. In other words, the farm is industrialized. The farm seems to be prosperous. They have trade with the neighboring farmers, and there are profits, so it's working. However, the profits are still not distributed equally as promised to the animals in the beginning. We remember Snowball's vision of comfort and plenty, and now there is rather an idea of frugality. In other words, penny pinching and holding on to. There is not really the plenty that they were talking about. The pigs, though, as the administrators on the farm, are really living well. And they are the supposed guardians of the animals. And they continue to indulge in the welfare of the farm, and they still have their special treatment. The animals in general, as I've shown to you, have been brainwashed altogether, and they still have that feeling of pride, that feeling of privilege that they live on animal farm and that they are sort of running their own farm, that animal farm is special. And they're very sort of proud to be associated with Animal Farm. And of course, Napoleon has all the pomp and the glory, so they feel privileged. The flag still remains the symbol of their achievement and of worthy ideals. And the animals sort of say to themselves, at least we are still free of human tyranny. Now, the lie in that and the contradiction is very clear. So can you see they are deluded as to their situation completely? But the last illusions that the animals have will soon be exposed in this chapter. Many things happen. The pigs now start resembling humans in a more overt way. They start wearing the clothes of the manor, the people who own the manor. They walk erect. They have whips in their trotters. So they are wielding whips. And then an interesting thing happens is that the hoof and the horn, which represented the principles of animalism, now gets taken off the flag, and the farm reverts to its former name, the manor farm. So it used to be the manor farm in Jones's time. It became Animal Farm as the revolution went on and things happened, and now they revert back to the manor farm because actually they are exactly in the same position as they were before they even had the rebellion. The 7 commandments that got reduced and changed all the time now is reduced to a simple, infamous statement. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Now, of course, there's a blatant contradiction here. If all animals are equal, how can some be more equal than others? It just doesn't make sense. However, it has a lovely ring to it, and the animals accept this as a kind of a slogan. So the self-contradiction in the statement aptly shows up the pig's fraudulent use of language, as we have pointed out to you throughout this book. Their definitions have been deceitful, and they've been coercive, in effect. The new commandment compels the animal's acceptance of the changed situation. Now we see how they have accepted, they have allowed, that's the animals, they have allowed the pigs to confuse them, to manipulate them, to stop them from thinking critically, from using language properly. They have accepted it, and now ultimately we see how this all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, actually compels their acceptance of the situation, which has now changed. There's a new name to the farm. Pigs walk erect. They wield whips. In other words, they have become the tyrants, and to such an extent that the animals did not even question it in any way. It did not seem strange to them anymore. You will remember that some of these things did seem strange to Boxer, to Clover, and then they were silenced. But now it did not even seem strange to them that the pigs assumed, human attire and all the human qualities, and were clothed like people. Did not seem strange to them anymore. The pigs establish normal business relations with the neighboring farmers, so the life goes on. The animals have accepted everything. They claim a harmony of interests between pig and humans. Now, can you see a harmony of interests between pigs and humans when humans were the common enemy? And they were told that all along. But now they claim that there's harmonious relationships with people, and in a humorous incident, they even give their amused assent to something that Pilkington says, where he compares the lower animals to the lower classes amongst humans, that they have to contend with their lower classes. In the same way, you must contend with your animals, your lower animals. So finally, they deny, and that's the ultimate. They deny ever having entertained any revolutionary aims. And once again, they use language. Ha, ha, ha. They say nothing could be further from the truth. In other words, they deny the fact that there was ever a revolution or they had any thoughts in that regard. So it's totally, all those ideals, everything, it's totally negated. It's gone. Nothing of that has been left. And this, what I've just said, that they deny that they ever even wanted a revolution, lies at the heart of the reversal that has now occurred. The full circle. They're back there. They're back to the manor farm. So the obscuring line between truth and fiction is now complete. The pigs have willfully allowed illusion. Remember how they've allowed this to happen to themselves? Allowed illusion to hide the unpleasant reality. And they stuck. So the corruption of power and the debasement of language are clearly connected. Can we just repeat this? Because this is what we've been working towards. So the corruption of power and the debasement of language, using language to manipulate, to reduce, instead of to extend, that they are clearly connected. The animal's interpretation of life on the farm has been shaped by the pig's deceptive definitions, and the animals have accepted it. Thus, the meaning, it has to do with the meaning they assign to their life on the farm diverges increasingly from the truth. They are actually now living in deception. Gradually, without perceiving it, they have moved further and further away from the ideals that they had from the start. And the pigs have established their dominion over the animals by suppressing individual perception. They couldn't have any opinions of their own or perceive something in any innovative way. They just had to accept. And then, of course, we get to the chilling last page of the book, where there is a loud noise coming from the house, and the humans and the pigs are having a meal together, and there's loud noise. Of course, there's drinking going on, and the pigs are very inquisitive. They go and they look through the window to see what's going on. So the change now becomes obvious to all. They cannot now deny what they actually see with their own eyes, the animals. And it is said that at first, what they saw there was difficult to grasp. There seemed, according to the animals, a melting of distinctions. Can you see the melting of distinctions that they never actually realized happened to them because they were bombarded into believing things? But now, physically, there was a melting of distinctions. And they looked at the little congregation there sharing a meal. So there seemed to be a melting of distinctions. But finally, the animals looked again. What is going on here? And they looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which.